Millionaire single dad hires a nanny to take care of his disabled son. When he checks the camera, he discovers the shocking truth. The grand estate of Liam Anderson stood imposingly at the top of a long, winding driveway. The vast glass windows reflected the overcast sky, giving the mansion an even colder, more unwelcoming presence. Inside, the air was still, almost too quiet, as if the house itself had long forgotten the sound of joy. Liam Anderson sat in his study, his fingers rhythmically tapping against the dark oak desk. His piercing blue eyes remained fixed on the resume in front of him, but his mind was elsewhere. He had interviewed 4 nannies this week, each with impeccable credentials, yet none of them felt right. His son, Noah, had made sure of that. A soft knock on the door pulled him back to the present. "Mr. Anderson," his assistant Claire announced. "Miss Emma Brooks is here for the interview." Liam exhaled slowly before responding. "Send her in." The door opened, and Emma Brooks stepped inside. She was younger than the previous candidates, dressed simply in a light blue blouse and dark trousers. Her dark brown hair was pulled into a neat ponytail, and her hazel eyes held a quiet determination. She didn't fidget or look intimidated by the grand office, which immediately set her apart from the others. "Miss Brooks," Liam greeted curtly, motioning to the chair across from him. "Mr. Anderson," she replied with a polite nod before sitting down. Liam studied her for a long moment, taking in her calm demeanor. Then, without preamble, he asked, "Do you have experience working with disabled children?" Emma met his gaze without hesitation. "Yes." He leaned back slightly. "Elaborate." Emma paused for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "I've worked with children who have mobility challenges before. I understand the patience it requires, the emotional toll it can take on them and their families." Liam's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's a very general answer. Have you formally studied physical therapy?" Emma didn't flinch at the question. "I did, but I didn't complete my degree." Liam's brow arched slightly. "Why?" A shadow passed over Emma's face, but she kept her tone even. "Personal reasons." Liam had no patience for vague answers. He was about to press further when Claire appeared at the door. "Sir, Noah refuses to come downstairs. He said he doesn't want to meet another nanny." Liam sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. This wasn't new. Noah had resisted every attempt at hiring someone to care for him. "Give me a minute." Emma stood up. "If you don't mind, Mr. Anderson, I'd like to introduce myself to him personally." Liam glanced at her, mildly surprised. "He won't talk to you." "That's all right," Emma said with a small smile. "I just want to see him." Liam hesitated, then motioned for Claire to lead the way. Emma followed her down a long, quiet hallway, stopping at the slightly ajar door to Noah's bedroom. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the heavy curtains drawn shut. A small figure sat curled up in the corner of a large bed, his back facing them. Claire spoke gently. "Noah, honey, this is Miss Brooks. She's here to." "Go away." Noah's voice was small but firm. Claire glanced at Emma apologetically before stepping aside. Emma took a breath and walked into the room. She didn't approach too quickly or try to force conversation. Instead, she crouched down a few feet away from the bed, giving Noah his space. "Hi, Noah," she said softly. "I'm Emma." The boy didn't respond. Emma looked around the room, noticing the scattered books on the floor, mostly adventure stories. "You like reading, huh?" she asked, picking up a book with a worn cover. "The Treasure Island." "That's a great one. I used to read it with my little brother." Noah still didn't turn around, but his small shoulders tensed slightly. Emma set the book down carefully. "I know you've met a lot of nannies before," she continued, her voice warm. "And I know it must be tiring to have so many strangers come and go." There was silence. Then, in a barely audible whisper, Noah muttered, "They always leave." Emma felt a sharp pang in her chest. Slowly, she moved closer, stopping just at the edge of the bed. "I'm not here to leave, Noah," she said gently. "I'm here because I want to be. And because I think you're pretty special." A beat of silence stretched between them. Then, ever so slowly, Noah shifted. His small hand, hesitant and uncertain, reached out and lightly touched Emma's wrist. Claire inhaled sharply. It was the first time Noah had voluntarily reached out to someone in over a year. Emma smiled softly, not moving too quickly, allowing him to set the pace. "See, we're already friends." At the doorway, Liam stood frozen. He had seen Noah reject every single nanny without hesitation, had watched him shut himself away from the world. But now, in the span of minutes, This woman had somehow broken through. For the first time in a very long time, Liam Anderson was speechless. The first few days with Emma were met with silence. Noah was wary, keeping his distance, his small body tense whenever she entered the room. He refused to engage, barely acknowledging her presence. But Emma wasn't deterred. She didn't force him to talk or push him into activities he didn't want to do. Instead, she simply showed up, every day, at the same time, with the same warm smile, as if she belonged there. She noticed the way he avoided looking at his wheelchair, how his fingers curled into his sleeves whenever someone mentioned therapy. She had seen it before, the quiet grief of a child who believed he was broken. But Noah wasn't broken. One morning, Emma walked into his room holding a small, round exercise ball. She sat on the carpet, deliberately not looking at him, and started rolling the ball in front of her. "I used to play a game with my little brother," she mused aloud. He thought it was silly at first, but eventually he got really good at it. Noah, curled up on his bed, didn't respond. Emma placed the ball a few feet away from him. "If you ever want to play, just push it back to me." And then she left. For the next 3 days the ball remained untouched, but on the 4th day, when Emma entered the room, she found it had moved, just slightly, but enough for her to know Noah had tried. She smiled. That was how it started. Small, seemingly insignificant actions that slowly, day by day, built trust. Emma never pushed Noah, she simply invited him. She introduced light stretches, calling them secret ninja moves to make them fun. She used storytelling to encourage him to reach for things. She brought in soft therapy bands and presented them as superhero strength tests. Noah still had bad days, days where frustration got the best of him, where he refused to participate and simply stared at the window, lost in his own sadness. But Emma was patient. On those days she didn't insist he try. She just sat beside him and waited. And one day, without prompting, he laughed. It was small, barely more than a breath, but it was real. Emma had been pretending to struggle while stacking toy blocks, acting overly dramatic every time they toppled over. She groaned, pressing her hands against her forehead. "Noah, I think these blocks have a personal vendetta against me." The little boy giggled. Emma froze, eyes wide with exaggerated shock. Did you just laugh? I need to record this. The world must know." Noah laughed again, covering his mouth, as if he wasn't used to the sound. That was the first time Liam Anderson truly noticed her. Liam had always relied on the security cameras installed throughout the house. It wasn't about spying. At least, that's what he told himself. It was about keeping things in control, ensuring his son was safe. But for the past few days, he had found himself checking the footage more often than necessary. He watched Emma move around the house with ease, her presence natural, as if she had always belonged there. He saw the way she interacted with Noah, patient, never forcing, always waiting for him to come to her. And Noah. His son was smiling. Liam barely recognized him. The boy who once refused to engage with anyone now leaned toward Emma when she spoke. He reached for her when she handed him something. He let himself laugh, a sound Liam hadn't heard in far too long. Late one evening, as he stood in his office, reviewing security footage for the 3rd time that night, Claire entered with a stack of documents. "Mr. Anderson?" she asked hesitantly, noticing his focused expression on the monitor. Liam didn't look away from the screen. "She's different," he murmured. Claire followed his gaze to the monitor, where Emma sat on the floor beside Noah, playfully tapping his nose as he tried to grab her wrist. "She is," Claire agreed. Liam exhaled slowly, leaning back in his chair. "Noah likes her." Claire smiled knowingly. "I think he does." Liam was silent for a long moment before finally asking, "Do you think she'll stay?" Claire hesitated before responding, "That depends." Liam frowned. "On what?" Claire met his gaze. "On whether or not you give her a reason to." For the first time in a very long time, Liam found himself watching someone not as an employer, but as a man. Liam was a man who valued control. He didn't like surprises, and he certainly didn't like not knowing something about the people around him. But Emma Brooks had become an anomaly in his otherwise structured world. She had been in his home for barely a month, yet Noah had already changed in ways Liam hadn't thought possible. The boy who once refused any form of therapy was now engaged, active, and, most shocking of all, hopeful. And it was all because of Emma. Liam had initially assumed that she was just naturally good with children. But the more he observed, the more he realized this wasn't just kindness. This was knowledge. She knew exactly how to stretch Noah's muscles to prevent stiffness. She knew the right pressure points to ease discomfort. She knew how to make the exercises feel like play rather than therapy. And yet, she had told him nothing about having formal training. That didn't sit right with him. Liam didn't believe in blind trust, so late one evening, when curiosity got the best of him, he made a few calls. With his resources, it didn't take long to uncover the truth. Emma Brooks had once been a rising star in the field of physical therapy. She had been a top student at a prestigious university, her professors praising her talent and dedication. Then, abruptly, she had dropped out. No explanation, no further records. Liam stared at the report in front of him, his jaw tightening. Why would someone with her skills choose to become a nanny? There was only one way to find out. The next morning, Liam found Emma in the backyard, helping Noah stretch his legs on the soft grass. The boy was giggling as Emma encouraged him, making exaggerated cheering sounds every time he completed a small movement. Liam watched for a moment, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Then, clearing his throat, he stepped forward. "Miss Brooks, a word." Emma glanced up at him, surprised by his formal tone. She helped Noah settle onto a nearby cushion before standing. "Of course." Liam gestured toward the side patio, away from Noah's ears. Emma followed, sensing something in his demeanor, something colder than usual. Once they were alone, Liam didn't waste time. "Why didn't you tell me you studied physical therapy?" Emma's body stiffened. I looked into your background." Liam's voice was firm, but there was no malice. Just curiosity, and something else. "You were one of the best in your class. Your professors thought you had a future in rehabilitation therapy. Then, suddenly, you disappeared from the field." Emma inhaled sharply. She wasn't angry that he had investigated her. She had expected that from him eventually. What she hadn't expected was how much this conversation would hurt. "I dropped out," she said quietly. "Why?" Emma hesitated. She had spent years avoiding this conversation, years pushing down the memories that threatened to drown her every time she let them surface. Liam studied her carefully, noticing the way her hands clenched at her sides. "Emma," his voice was softer now, "tell me the truth." She exhaled slowly, as if summoning the strength to say the words. "My little brother Caleb," she finally said. "He was born with a rare neuromuscular disorder. He couldn't walk. He spent his whole life in a wheelchair, but he never let it stop him. He was the happiest kid I knew." Liam remained silent, letting her continue at her own pace. "I wanted to help him," Emma said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's why I studied physical therapy. I spent years believing that if I just worked hard enough, if I learned enough, I could find a way to make his life easier." Liam's chest tightened. He already knew where this was going. Emma swallowed hard. "Then one day he got sick. A complication from his condition. We thought it was minor at first, but it wasn't. Within weeks, he was gone." She blinked rapidly, fighting the tears threatening to spill over. "I was supposed to save him," she whispered. "I was supposed to be the one person who could help him, and her voice broke. "I failed." Liam's stomach twisted. "I couldn't bring myself to go back to school," Emma admitted, staring at the ground. "Every time I stepped into a classroom, all I could think about was how none of it mattered anymore. Because the one person I wanted to help was gone." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unspoken. Liam had seen countless people break under pressure, business rivals, employees, even friends. But this was different. This was a wound that had never healed. Slowly, Emma looked up, her hazel eyes filled with raw honesty. "I took this job because I saw Noah, and I saw Caleb. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could do something again. I'm not here because I need a paycheck, Mr. Anderson. I'm here because I don't want to fail another little boy who deserves a chance." Liam stared at her, his chest tightening with something he couldn't name. She was telling the truth. Every word. And for the first time since meeting her, Liam Anderson felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. The overwhelming need to protect someone. Not because they worked for him, not because they were his responsibility, but because she mattered. Liam Anderson was a man of routine. His life was structured, predictable, and meticulously planned. Every morning he woke up at precisely 5:30 a.m., worked out for exactly 45 minutes, then spent the rest of his day buried in meetings, phone calls, and investment reports. Noah had always been part of that schedule, Just another appointment slotted into his day. Breakfast at 7, check in with his nanny at noon, brief goodnight at 8:30. But never more than that. Emma Brooks, however, was disrupting his perfectly crafted routine. It started small. One afternoon, she intercepted him as he was about to leave for work. "Mr. Anderson," she called, standing in the hallway with her arms crossed. Liam, already in his tailored suit, adjusted his cufflinks. "Yes?" Emma tilted her head. "When was the last time you played with Noah?" Liam frowned. "I spend time with him. Having dinner in the same room doesn't count." Liam glanced at his watch. He had an important meeting in 40 minutes. "I have a business to run, Miss Brooks. And Noah has a father who barely knows him." The bluntness of her words made him pause. No one spoke to him like that. Not his employees, not his colleagues, not even his closest friends. Emma continued, her tone softer this time. "Just 15 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Liam studied her for a long moment. Then, with a quiet sigh, he nodded. 15 minutes. How hard could it be? It was harder than he thought. Liam sat stiffly on the living room floor, watching Noah as Emma placed a set of small, colorful bowling pins in front of him. "All right, champ," she said cheerfully. "Your turn." Noah hesitated, his tiny fingers gripping the soft foam ball. He glanced at Liam uncertainly. "Go on," Liam encouraged, though the words felt unfamiliar in his mouth. Noah took a deep breath and rolled the ball forward. It wobbled slightly before knocking down 2 pins. Emma clapped dramatically. "Yes, that's 2 points for Noah." The boy beamed, his eyes lighting up with pride. Liam felt something tighten in his chest. He had spent thousands on the best doctors, the best therapists, the best equipment, but he had never seen Noah look like this. He looked happy. 15 minutes turned into 30. Then an hour. By the time Liam stood to leave, he realized something strange. For the first time in years, he hadn't checked his phone once. As the days passed, Emma kept pushing him in subtle ways. "Come on, Mr. Anderson," she teased one evening. "Just one game of chess with Noah. He's getting good." "I don't lose," Liam replied dryly. Emma smirked. "Then you have nothing to worry about, right?" He played, and he lost. Noah's victorious giggle was the most beautiful sound Liam had ever heard. One afternoon, Liam arrived home earlier than usual and found Noah outside in the garden, his wheelchair beside him, as Emma knelt next to him, holding his hands steady. "Okay, Noah," she said gently. "Just a little more. You've got this." Noah wobbled slightly, his legs trembling with effort. Liam's breath caught. Then, for just a few seconds, Noah stood. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't strong. But it was something. Noah gasped, then collapsed into Emma's arms, laughing. Emma hugged him tightly, whispering words of encouragement. Liam, standing by the doorway, felt something inside him shift. He should have been proud, and he was, but there was something else, something unexpected, an ache in his chest as he watched Emma hold his son, as if she were holding something fragile and precious. And then, without realizing it, Liam smiled. A real, genuine smile. The kind he hadn't felt in years. That evening, as Emma was tidying up the living room, she looked up and noticed Liam watching her from the hallway. She blinked in surprise. "Is something wrong?" Liam's jaw tensed. He had been caught. For a moment he looked like he wanted to say something. But then, as if realizing it himself, he quickly looked away. "No," he muttered, turning on his heel. "Good night, Miss Brooks." Emma watched him go, a small, knowing smile on her lips. Liam Anderson was changing. And he didn't even realize it yet. Liam Anderson was a man who thrived on logic. Numbers, reports, projections, these were things he could control. Emotions, however, were unpredictable, chaotic. He had spent years keeping them at bay, building walls so high that even he had forgotten what it felt like to care beyond necessity. And yet, here he was. At nearly midnight, instead of working, he found himself sitting in his dimly lit office, staring at the security monitor. It had started as a habit, checking in to ensure Noah was safe. But lately, he had been checking for something else. Or rather, someone else. Tonight was no different. He clicked through the live feeds, stopping at Noah's room. And then he froze. On the screen, Emma was kneeling in front of Noah, gently holding his hands. The soft glow of the bedside lamp illuminated her face. But it was her expression that made Liam's breath catch. She looked vulnerable, broken and determined all at once. "Noah," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Let's try one more time, okay? Noah, looking equally exhausted and hopeful, nodded. Emma took a deep breath. On 3. 1, 2, 3. With every ounce of strength in his small body, Noah pushed against the floor, his legs trembling as he lifted himself up. For a few seconds he stood, his tiny hands gripping Emma's arms. A wide, proud smile spread across his face. I did it. Emma laughed softly, her grip steadying him. You did. But then, Liam saw it. The way her expression shifted, the way her smile faltered, how her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Noah collapsed back into her arms, exhausted but grinning. Emma held him close, her body shaking slightly. Then, in a voice so quiet that Liam had to turn up the volume, she whispered, You did it, Noah. You're going to walk. My little brother never got the chance, but you will. Liam's entire body went rigid. Emma's shoulders shook as she pressed her forehead against Noah's. He didn't seem to notice her tears. He was too focused on his small victory. But Liam saw everything. He had always known there was something about Emma, something unspoken that lingered behind her kind smiles. But now he understood. This wasn't just a job for her. It wasn't just about being a good nanny or even a dedicated caregiver. This was personal. She wasn't just helping Noah. She was saving herself. Liam exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. Why? Why would she pour her entire heart into this? Why was she giving so much of herself, sacrificing so much? And then, a thought entered his mind. One he had been avoiding for weeks. Was she doing this just for Noah, or was it for him too? Liam closed his eyes, a foreign ache settling in his chest. He had spent so long keeping his distance, telling himself that Emma was simply an employee, someone hired to do a job. But that wasn't the truth. Not anymore. Because tonight, as he sat alone in his office, watching a woman cry over his son with more love than he had ever seen in another human being, Liam finally admitted the one thing he had been running from. Emma Brooks wasn't just changing Noah's life. She was changing his. And for the first time in years, Liam Anderson felt completely, utterly out of control. Emma had always known this wasn't forever. She had told herself from the beginning that this was just a job, temporary, fleeting. She had come into Noah's life to help him, to give him something she had failed to give her little brother. But she had never expected how deeply she would come to love him, or how much it would hurt to leave. It started with a conversation she overheard by accident. Emma had just stepped into the hallway when she heard Liam's voice from his office, speaking on the phone. Yes, Dr. Reynolds, I appreciate you making time for this. Noah needs the best, and I'm willing to pay whatever it takes. A pause. No, I don't want to waste any more time. I want a full therapy plan in place by next week. Emma stood frozen. A full therapy plan? A professional therapist? She didn't need to hear more. Liam was hiring someone else. Suddenly, everything made sense. Of course, this had been inevitable. She had done what she was hired to do, help Noah. But now that he was making progress, now that he didn't need her anymore, Liam was moving forward. Without her. Emma walked back to her room, her heart pounding in her chest. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth, trying to steady her breathing. She had been stupid to think she belonged here. She had let herself believe, just for a moment, that she was part of something real. That maybe, just maybe, she had a place in their lives beyond a job title. But she was wrong. The next morning, Emma walked into Liam's office with her resignation letter in hand. Liam barely glanced up from his laptop. Miss Brooks, I'm quitting. His fingers paused on the keyboard. Slowly, he lifted his gaze to her. What? What? Emma inhaled sharply, trying to keep her voice steady. You don't need me anymore, Mr. Anderson. You hired a professional therapist. It's the right decision. Liam frowned. I didn't hire him to replace you, Emma. I hired him to help you. Emma's breath caught, but she forced herself to remain composed. Regardless, I think it's time for me to go. Silence stretched between them. Liam's expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something that almost looked like hesitation. But he didn't stop her. He simply nodded once. If that's what you want. Emma swallowed against the tightness in her throat. No, it wasn't what she wanted. But it was what she had to do. When Emma told Noah she was leaving, he broke down. Tears streamed down his small face as he clung to her, his tiny fingers gripping her sleeve with all the strength he had. No, he sobbed. Please don't go. Emma crouched down, pulling him into a tight hug. Noah, her voice cracked as she smoothed his messy hair. You're going to be okay. You're strong, and you're getting better every day." Noah shook his head frantically. "Not like that. I don't want you to go. You're my family." Emma squeezed her eyes shut, trying not to break. She wanted to tell him that she wasn't leaving because she wanted to, that she had fallen in love with this little boy like he was her own flesh and blood. But she couldn't stay where she wasn't wanted. "He doesn't need her anymore, does he?" Noah whispered. Emma stiffened. "What?" Noah sniffled, looking down. "Dad, did he tell you he doesn't need you anymore?" Emma forced a smile, even as her heart shattered. "Noah, listen to me. You're going to do amazing things. And no matter where I am, I will always be cheering for you." Noah threw his arms around her neck, sobbing into her shoulder. And Emma let herself cry with him. Liam watched from the doorway, his fists clenched at his sides. He had told himself to let her go. He had convinced himself that this was just a job, that her leaving wouldn't matter. But seeing her hold Noah like that, seeing his son cry for a woman he didn't want to lose, Liam felt something inside him snap. Emma wasn't just an employee. She wasn't just a nanny. She was family. And if he let her walk away now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Emma had always believed that leaving was the hardest part. But standing in her tiny apartment, staring at the packed suitcase by her door, she realized something far worse: the silence. No more Noah's laughter echoing down the hall. No more playful teasing. No more of the warmth that had slowly crept into her heart. It was over. And yet, as much as she tried to convince herself that she had done the right thing, the ache in her chest told her otherwise. Then came the knock at the door. Emma frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. She hesitated before opening it, and when she did, her breath caught. Liam Anderson stood on her doorstep, and he wasn't alone. Noah was in his arms, his small hands clutching Liam's coat, his face pressed against his father's shoulder. For a moment, Emma could only stare. Liam was always so composed, so put together. But now, standing there in the dim glow of her porch light, he looked different. Like a man who had been running, and finally realized what he was running toward. Liam's gaze locked onto hers, his blue eyes darker than she had ever seen them. "We need to talk." Emma's throat tightened. "Liam, I should have stopped you," he interrupted. His voice was raw, unsteady, completely unguarded. "I should have told you before you walked out of that house, but I was a coward." Emma swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the edge of the doorframe. "Liam, don't." "I don't just need you because of Noah," Liam said, his voice dropping to something almost desperate. "I need you because of me." Emma's breath hitched. "I've spent years convincing myself that I was fine on my own," Liam admitted, his jaw tight. "That emotions were messy, that getting close to someone only led to pain." His gaze softened. "And then you walked into my life, and everything changed." Emma shook her head, trying to hold back the tears burning behind her eyes. "Liam, I can't go through this again. I can't lose someone She stopped herself before the words slipped out. Liam stepped closer. "You won't lose me." Emma blinked rapidly, but the tears finally spilled over. "How can you be sure?" Liam exhaled, reaching into his coat pocket. "Because I did this." He pulled out a folder and handed it to her. Emma hesitated before slowly opening it. The second she saw what was inside, she gasped. A diploma. Her own diploma. With trembling hands, she lifted it, scanning the name Emma Brooks, Bachelor of Physical Therapy. Her knees nearly buckled. "What, how?" "I re-enrolled you in your program," Liam said quietly. "You had already completed most of your coursework before you left. All that was missing were a few credits, and I made sure those were accounted for." Emma's hand covered her mouth, her whole body trembling. "Why would you do this?" Liam stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because you gave up your dream for your brother. And then you gave up everything again, for my son." His eyes darkened with emotion. "I won't let you give up on yourself too." Emma sank to her knees, sobbing. For the first time in years, she felt something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. The sun shone brightly over the Anderson estate, its warmth stretching across the vast garden, where laughter echoed in the crisp morning air. Noah sat on the soft grass, his hands gripping Emma's tightly. His small legs trembled as he struggled to push himself upright. His breathing was heavy, his brows furrowed in concentration. Emma knelt beside him, her heart pounding in her chest. "You've got this, Noah. Just one step." Noah hesitated, his big, expressive eyes flickering with uncertainty. Then, ever so slowly, he shifted his weight. and took a step. Then another. Liam stood a few feet away, frozen in place. His hands clenched at his sides, his heart hammering against his ribs as he watched his son, his little boy who had spent years confined to a wheelchair, walk. Noah stumbled, and Liam surged forward, but Emma was already there, catching him before he could fall. Noah laughed, a breathless, victorious sound. Emma clutched him tightly, her body shaking with sobs. "You did it, sweetheart," she whispered against his hair. "You did it." Noah grinned up at her, then turned to his father, beaming. "Dad, I did it." Liam finally exhaled, the tension in his chest giving way to something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride, gratitude, love. Liam dropped to his knees beside them, pulling both Emma and Noah into his arms. For the first time in years, he let himself feel everything. The warmth, the joy, the overwhelming sense that this was where he belonged. Noah giggled between them. "Dad, Emma is crying." Liam pulled back slightly, brushing his knuckles against Emma's stamped cheek. "She cries a lot, doesn't she?" he teased. Emma laughed through her tears, swatting at his arm. "It's called having emotions, Mr. Anderson." Liam smirked, but then his expression turned serious. His grip on her hand tightened. Emma frowned. "What?" Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's breath caught. Slowly, Liam opened it, revealing a simple but stunning diamond ring. Noah gasped, "Dad!" Liam's blue eyes never left Emma's. "I never thought I'd get a second chance at this," he admitted. "At happiness. At love." He exhaled slowly. "But you gave me that, Emma. You gave Noah a reason to hope again. And somehow you made me believe in something I thought was gone forever." Emma's hand trembled in his. Liam swallowed hard. "I love you." His voice was raw, unguarded. "And I want us to be a family. Not just for Noah. For us." Noah gasped again, clapping excitedly. "Miss Emma, you agree to go." Emma let out a watery laugh, staring at the man who had once been so distant, so closed off. Now, he was looking at her like she was his entire world. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "Yes," he whispered. Liam slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a deep, soul-stirring kiss as Noah cheered beside them. In that moment, they were no longer just three broken people trying to survive. They were a family, whole, complete, forever. As the sun set over the Anderson estate, casting a golden glow over the family embracing in the garden, it was clear that this wasn't just the end of a journey. It was the beginning of something beautiful. Emma had found her home. Liam had opened his heart. And Noah had taken his first steps not just toward walking, but toward a future filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. This story is a reminder that love isn't just about attraction. It's about sacrifice, trust, and finding someone who sees the best in you, even when you can't see it yourself. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heartwarming tales that remind us all of the power of love, resilience, and second chances. Because sometimes the most unexpected people become the family we never knew we needed.